group members are Katie McMullen,
Maria Bruna,
Eva F.
Francis Way,
and Christine Schlag.
We were curious as how does Helen Keller's disposition and environmental factors contribute to her political activism? We found out that Helen Keller's social activism and interest in communism have developed by the processes of sensation and perception, thinking and language, and social psychology.
Helen Keller was born June 27, 1880, in Alabama with fully functioning sight and hearing. She started speaking when she was 6 months old. By the time she was a year old, she was able to communicate with her parents, and she had also learned to walk. At 19 months old, she contracted an illness described by doctors as an acute congestion of the stomach and the brain, which may have been scarlet fever or meningitis. The illness did not last for a particularly long time, but it unfortunately left her deaf and blind. Helen Keller's Broca's area was most likely damaged when she got sick, hence inhibiting her ability to successfully speak. This is the area of the brain located in the left part of the frontal lobe that controls language expression and directs the muscle movements involved in speech. We can assume that Keller suffered from sensorineural hearing loss because there is no written proof that her ear was punctured, and it cannot be conduction hearing loss, which involves mechanical issues. It must have been caused by damage to the cochlea's receptor cells or to the auditory nerves, which is also known as nerve deafness.
At that time, she began to learn to communicate somewhat with Martha Washington, the 6-year-old daughter of the family cook who understood her signs. By the age of 7, Helen had acquired more than 60 language signs to communicate with her family. Helen Keller clearly demonstrated intrinsic motivation by deeming it necessary to learn to communicate of her own accord. She would not receive any kind of reward such as a monetary incentive, thus her primary reasons for learning to talk again were not extrinsic, but rather for her own benefit and control of her own life.
As Keller's condition became more widely known to the public, Perkins Institute for the Blind in Massachusetts asked former student Anne Sullivan, herself visually impaired and only 20 years old, to become Keller's instructor. It was the beginning of a 49-year-old relationship. As Sullivan began to work with Keller during this time, Keller learned that whatever word Sullivan spelled or motioned in her hand would lead to learning a new concept or word. Sullivan used a type of learning concept known as classical conditioning, which is a type of learning in which one learns to link two or more stimuli and anticipate events. Thus, Keller would learn to associate a specific motion or touch to her hand with the actual represented object or idea.
Helen Keller's beliefs consisted of praise for the Russian Revolution as a triumph for freedom. In a letter to President Woodrow Wilson, she said, "For to me, the Russian Revolution seems the most wonderful thing that has happened in 2,000 years. It is like a conscious sun bursting upon a gloomy, disastrous world, the sun which shall heal the nations." Russia became communist. Communism is an economic policy often associated with totalitarian governments. Communism, in theory, is that everyone puts into the government all they can, and in turn, the government takes care of their needs. With Keller's attitude, which is feelings that are often influenced by our beliefs, which lead us to respond in a particular way to certain objects, situations, and people, led to her support of communist Russia. Keller's belief that she could, with effort, overcome her unfortunate conditions and lead a successful life made her feel more optimistic and in control of her life. This, in turn, gave her a stronger, more positive attitude. This desire to overcome unfortunate events translated into her political opinions as she supported a country whose ideology was to provide for its citizens. Helen Keller became a member of the Socialist Party of Massachusetts in 1909. Keller supported the party, most likely due to her desire to eradicate poverty, as many deaf and blind people were in poverty. This ties into the drive reduction theory, the idea that physiological need creates an aroused attention state, a drive that motivates an organism to satisfy the need. Keller felt a need to help the deaf and blind, and this motivated her to be a political activist and advocate of socialism, to help those with very little who were also more likely to become both blind and deaf. Keller's place as a member of the Socialist Party led to discrimination or unjustified negative behavior toward a group and its members. At first, Keller was praised as a champion for overcoming her disabilities to achieve her education. Keller's disabilities eventually became an excuse to disregard her political opinion. This is due to the Red Scare and overall disdain for socialism and communism. The United States was very afraid of what communism would do to the country and therefore shunned all those potentially associated with the ideology. Discrimination still exists in today's society. Some Middle Eastern countries discriminate against women just as Americans discriminate against Middle Eastern people. It is interesting that Helen Keller's influence on history can still be felt today.